Okay, so it's time to get it set for batch 553. The shrimp batch, the last batch, the shrimp, there's the water from it. You can see it's over 1 gallon, because this jug, a gallon's down here approximately. So this is slightly over 1 gallon. And the interesting thing is with the shrimp, we did shrimp, so the last 2 days, and this room smelled slightly of shrimp. Now there's nothing. The water has no smell of shrimp. The barrel has no smell of shrimp. So I find it interesting. We'll get it set for this next batch. I'm not sure what's going in here yet. It's going to be just stuff out of the freezer that we've had a backlog while we've been doing these other items. So we'll get the thermometer underneath. And this has had overnight to dry because the last batch finished last night and I decided not to start another one. So I don't even have to worry about any dampness because the fan's been running 14 hours. So it's had a good long time to dry. So I'll get the plastic disc in place, get it closed, and going to make sure that there's a seal ring all the way around, even for pre-freezing, because I don't want any air going through with the moisture from the air and then freezing on that seal. So let's double check that. I can see a ring most of the way around. There's a space right here, and that's about it. Oh, nope, there's a teeny space up there. So I'm going to use my palette knife and just put it in there and give it a little twist, and it just doesn't take much. The seal is nice and flexible when it's warm. And okay, now I've got a ring all the way around there. I don't have to worry about air going through there and causing ice on that seal. If you have a newer machine, you'll be doing your startup a little different, I'm sure. I'm still using version 2.4.3, which I'm real happy with. Gives me all the customized controls that I want and information that I want to see. So I'm going to use customize instead of start custom, and continue. And the drain, I'll make sure the drain valve gets closed. It says it's 66 degrees in there right now. It won't take too long. The thermometer that I just put in there says it is about 72. So it won't take too long to get it cold enough to put the food in. I want to make sure that it's down to at least 20 degrees and dropping rapidly so that it doesn't warm up the food from the freezer. So as soon as that's cold enough, we'll get a bunch of the blocks out of the freezer that have been pre-frozen and waiting and get them loaded. Not sure what we're putting in yet. We'll find out when we get to the freezer. So we'll be right back as soon as that's cold enough. Oh, I've got the little lines, my marks on the table. Whoops. So I line them up with the little felt pen marks on the table. And I tape it down. Oh, yeah, this is just a metal ruler that I have upside down. It has a quart back on it. It's a thin metal ruler. So it has it works as a nice edge for tearing them. And I'm using the pattern on the tabletop to line them up and keep them square. I'm ready for that set. And this is my last roll. I'm going to have to cut some more in, well, that'll still be a month or two. Now let's go get the food. So we're just pulling some more things out of the freezer that need to be freeze dried. So looking for things that have been here for a while. And this whole shelf, which has, 2, 4, 6, probably 8 batches worth just on this shelf. These are my sister's things. We're going to pull out enough stuff for a batch out of that. So I'll get a couple of the plastic corrugate stuff to insulate the rolling cart, and we'll pull out some things. So let's see what we have in here. I'm gonna look for, I think, ground beef kinds of things because I don't know what all's in here. Here's onions, a couple of pounds of onions. Scrambled hamburger with onions. 1, 2, 3, there's 4 pounds right there. Oh, these are thick. I don't know how those are going to do. Okay. Looks like more hamburger. So 1, 2, 3 more pounds. So there's 7 pounds of hamburger. Okay. Here's 2 more, so 9 pounds. So 2 more pounds, so that gives us 9 pounds. That's pretty good. So I may stop with that. So if I need more, there's more. Let's get those on the trays. And I have the trays chilling up on top. So they're nice and frozen. Now we'll get these on the trays. Tray 1. Most of these look like they're the same date. So I'm going to go ahead and put those on there. And I'm going to use this label that she made, and I'll just stick that underneath. And little half-pound blocks. Okay, this is the same stuff. So we'll just add to the tray. I'm going to move that forward a bit. So this was 2.5 pounds before it was in the freezer. So 1828. Tray 2. I'm going to use this tag on that tray. Yeah, it's really nice to have these pre-weighed and frozen like this. Easy as can be to get them all on the trays. Now I do want to get some thermometers in these. I'm going to use one of the pieces of corrugated plastic to keep it insulated from the table. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and add thermometers to these. It'll be real easy to get it in there. And by going the second block back, I don't need to drill very deep of a hole. There we go. All right, so once again, thermometers are not required. I like to add thermometers so it gives me information about how warm this is before I take it out, especially if I have to rewarm it for any reason. Like, you know, I was too lazy to take them out on time, and so they were in there for a while. Okay. So those are ready for the freeze dryer. Let's move over and get them in. Well, and as usual, I've let it pre-cool way too long because I keep getting sidetracked with other things. So it's been 2.5 hours. It's already -40. We'll get them in there. Of course, that will warm it up because these are probably about 10 degrees. So that's 50 degrees warmer than what's in there right now. So we'll get them in. And there's a little bit of a vacuum because the air has condensed as it's cooled. So I got to pop that open and we'll get condensation on that inside disc right away. And that shows why I don't like to take the food out when it's cold, because all that condensation would be condensing on the trays and food that fast. There's no way you could bag them before you have moisture added back to the food. So from the bottom, tray 4, and 3, 2, and tray 1. Whoop, come on. So let's check the temperatures right now. We're below 10, we're at 10, below 10. This one's still showing 20, but this is the other thermometer. I tested it. It is a little bit different than these. but I didn't test it at super cold temperatures. I may replace that thermometer with another one like the other three. Okay, I want to get that ring all the way around. It looks like it's almost there. Gonna give it a little twist there. Okay, we have a ring all the way around. Now I don't have to worry about air leaking back and forth here and making an ice ring on there, so it'll be sealed already when it starts. It's got another 3.5 hours for the freezing time for a total of 6. That's probably plenty with this pre-frozen stuff as cold as it was. And the fact that it's a very low moisture batch, so it doesn't take a lot to get that down to a low temperature. So we'll come back and check it. It will probably be, well, because it's a low moisture batch, it will probably be early 2 days from now. It's mid-afternoon right now, and 2 days from now, early in the morning, this should be done. Maybe even late tomorrow evening. Okay, we'll come back and check it later. Don't go away, we'll be right back. The Hamburger batch has been going for about 32.5 hours. It says it has about an hour and a half to go. The bottom 3 trays are all about 120 and the top one's about 110 right now. And they've been up that high for at least 3 or 4 hours now. There's a good chance that it's already done, and it's getting late at night. So it either has to stay overnight or I need to get them out in an hour and a half or 2 hours. I'm going to go ahead and bypass the last hour and a half, do the weight check now, and then check it again in an hour and a half or 2 hours. If it's done, then I'll bag them tonight. Otherwise, they'll have to wait until tomorrow morning and just sit in there in the vacuum and drying more. Let's check them, find out what they're doing. So I'm going to bypass the rest of the time. Going to open the drain valve. So, and ground beef or hamburger has very little water in after it's cooked, so it really does tend to go pretty quickly. Okay, 11:38, and tray 2, 11:51, and I'll put this one at the opposite spot. So tray 2 I'll put up here, and that says about 124 right now. And this one's about 106. This one's about 125. Okay, tray 3, 11:18, 11:19. I'll go with the lower one. 11:18. And tray 4. Now the bottom of this tray feels a little cooler, but the thermometer was still up. 1072. Okay, and then this one can go up higher. Okay, so 4 will go up here. And 3 will come down here. We'll come back and check them in an hour and a half or 2 hours. If they don't lose any weight, that means they're already dry now and we can bag them. If they lose any weight, they're going to have to wait overnight until tomorrow, because I'm not going to be bagging them later than that. So we'll get the drain valve closed, add more time, more dry time. I did close it, continue, and go. Said it had an hour and a half to go. We'll be back in about an hour and a half to check it. If it's dry, we'll take them out. Don't go away, we'll be right back. Okay, well, I'm an idiot. I was editing instead of paying attention to time, so it already stopped. But the tray temperatures, and that's one of the good things about having thermometers in there, the tray temperatures are still 80 degrees, or the food temperature is still 80 degrees. So it's still safe to take it out without having to worry about condensation. If I didn't have those thermometers in there, I wouldn't know one, how long ago it stopped, which I actually don't know anyway, or two, how cold the trays are. So if it was stopped and I'm just sitting there, I wouldn't know if it was safe to take them out without worrying about condensation. Anyway, let's get them out of there before they cool more. So open the drain valve. Wow, some big snaps and pops. Tray one. Okay. 1137, so it could be 1 gram. Tray two. 1151, no change. Just make sure that that's zeroed out still after moving it. Tray three, and this one is starting to get cool. 1118, so no change. And tray four. Okay, 1072, no change. None of them had any change, so no defrost. So get the thermometer out from underneath. And hamburger cooked, the cooked ground beef or cooked hamburger has very low moisture, so there's not a big water load in there. Okay, we'll get the defrost fan in place. So I'll get that turned on after I come back and get the time that it took and the power usage. So I'll wheel these over for the bagging area. I don't know how long ago it stopped, but judging by the fact that they were about 80 degrees still, it's at least 15 minutes, could be as much as a half hour. I'm going to call it 21 minutes because that way I've got a nice even number. And we know that it was dry at least 2 hours before that because it didn't lose any weight. So I'm going to knock the 3451 down to 3230. So now the power usage. So that hamburger used 22.48 kilowatt hours for drying. So restart it, reset it, and get it set for the next batch. All right, now to bagging. We'll get the final weights. 1129. Tray 2. 1143. 1110. All right, and tray 4. So add those up, divide them out, find out the water loss, and then we'll get them bagged. There is some variation between the trays. This one's the lightest. It looks like they're the thinnest ones. But I'm not going to worry about that terribly. I'm going to put each one of these. So I've got quart bags labeled, but I think that's kind of overkill, but that's what I'm going to do with them. I'm going to put each one in a half pound in each bag. Looks like I probably should have done pint bags. Well, I think I better do this tray a little separate from the other ones because they're just much lighter. The other ones are more similar. Okay, I'll be right back after we label a couple of bags. That's why this tray was so much lighter. These three were only 12-ounce ones. So there's quite a variation on the block weights. And the important thing to remember is I didn't make these. These are my sister's. So any variation is due to hers. That's the best I can do is bag them the way they are. So this tray lost 670 grams. Each block lost about 134 grams. That's what I'm going to use on these bags for these 5. Huh, holy moly. If I do half pound, I need 10 or 20 bags. I don't want to do 20 bags. I'd rather do 1 pound bags. Okay, hold off again. Okay, well, I'm going to try it that way. All right, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to call it 1 pound each, and these are 130 or 260 grams. I'm just going to bag them that way, and I'll relabel them as 1 pound instead of half pound. And these were all very, very lean ground beef. And I took these off the other tray because they were the same variety as that. Not that I'm terribly worried about mixing them up at all, but at least then they'll be the same in each bag. Next, oxygen absorbers. So I'm going to use 300cc oxygen absorbers in the quart bags. So these are all bagged in 7 mil thick quart bags with the gusseted bottoms, which I really like. So I'll just tuck an oxygen absorber down the side of each bag. God, I hate when that happens. Again, 11 of them. Apparently counting isn't a big thing. Now, get these zippered shut, and they're really pretty full, so I can't really push any extra air out. You could with a vacuum sealer. Now, we've got them zippered shut, but of course zippering is no substitute for heat sealing. So we'll get them heat sealed using a impulse sealer. This is an Impact brand one. That's what they were sending out 5 years ago. And I know this machine from commercial places years ago. So I know they hold up well. It's got a 5mm wide sealer, and I'll make sure that there's no wrinkles in that top edge of the bag, and I'll seal it as high as I can on the bag. So I've got room for additional seals if I fail on this one. And I'm going to do this first one twice to make sure it's completely up to temperature. Probably completely unnecessary, but I've gotten in the habit of doing it. Okay, nice good seal all the way across the top. And get them all sealed. Okay, that one is a little bit wrinkly, so I'm going to do it again up higher. Let it cool, chill a bit, cool a couple of seconds. Okay, once again, the last item I'm going to add is the gross weight of the entire bag. So 141 grams, 141 grams. Now, if water starts to migrate through that bag, I'll know ahead of time just by putting it on the scale and see if it gets heavier. With those all labeled and with the weight on it, I've got what it is, the date that it went in, the batch number, the weight before it was freeze-dried, the water that was lost, and the weight that the entire bag is. But these are slightly different to the extent that they don't get put in a bin. Unlike all the other ones we've done, these aren't going into one of the tubs because they're not mine. And I don't have to put them in a tub. They're just going in a bag. So these just get put in a bag, and then they can go back. I forgot one. and they can go back to her. Those are done. Moving on to the next batch, which is still going to be out of the freezer, so it might be another batch of this. Probably, if it is, the only real difference would be they would get bagged in different amounts. Most of them will get bagged in half pound ones, which means I'll probably use the pint bag, but I'll double check that. So that's all for now. So until the next one. So as you saw, that batch is done. That was batch 553. It was cooked hamburger or cooked ground beef with some onions. Some of it might have had some celery, some other spices. I'm not exactly sure because I didn't cook it. It was my sister's. And because of that, it doesn't have to go in a tub. It's just in a tote bag, so it can go back to her that way. And then she can put it in her bins. She doesn't typically use the big bins because they're too big for her. So she usually uses the smaller tubs. So that's all for now. And on to the next one. Thanks for watching. So now we'll get this batch on the trays and into the freeze dryer. It's going to be another batch of hamburger like the last one. It'll be part of the same video probably, but you'll know first. Okay, so we'll get that out. So after I get each tray filled, I'm going to add a paper towel underneath them before I weigh the final tray or the filled tray, and I'm going to add a paper towel on top. That way, if there is any fats in it that come out, this will capture it. There's what I've got. I've got the hamburger on the tray. It's written underneath what each block weighs, so I can check it later and know exactly how much water each piece lost. Starting at the bottom with tray 4. They're all in there, and they're still at about 10 to 15 degrees. The cooked ground beef has very little water in it. It won't take terribly long. We'll see you in a couple of days. Time to take them out and check them. If there was no weight drop, then they were done 2 hours ago. So that hamburger batch is done. This hamburger has the most fat of any that my sister's done, I think. And it's mostly on the outside because of the way it was made. I'm not concerned about the amount. It's not really that high. She used a fairly lean cut of meat to begin with. It just has it on the outside edge. For those that are worried about fats in their freeze-dried, just assume it's going to last a shorter amount of time. Store it in a cool place, use a good oxygen absorber, keep it away from light, heat, and oxygen, and we've already removed the water. So it still should be good for quite some time. If you compare the commercial made stuff, they have ones that have significant amount of fat in it, and they're good for 30 years. So I'm not particularly worried. Break them in half or crumble them a bit and put them in the little pint bag, ½ pound each. And because there's 20 of them all alike, with the only difference with how much water they lost. And if you remember, I have it written underneath there for each one. So anyway, so I'm going to use a paper tag that I'll tape on there. All of these are bagged into 1 pint bags. So I've got 20 1 pint bags. I'm going to add 300 cc oxygen absorbers. So as I add one, I'm going to slide it over a little bit so that I don't miss one. So all of those are zippered down nicely. Get the ones in here, because remember, zippering is not a substitute for heat sealing, but it does at least not leave the bag open, so it's better than not having it sealed. So now it's completely sealed, and I've got it very high up on the bag, but I do have the full 5 millimeters of the seal. Okay, so those 20 of those ½ pound bags of hamburger in a bag, ready to go back. And that's it for that batch, and on to the next batch, which will probably be another hamburger batch. And once again, it's later in the evening, and I could get this one restarted today if I cared to, but I'm going to just wait until tomorrow to get the next one. And it'll probably be another batch of hamburger yet again, because trying to empty out some of my sister's stuff out of the freezer, the backlog that built up while I was doing the other series. Batch 555 is almost done. It's time to take it out and check it. It's late at night. I don't want to bag it right now. and I still need to put it in for more time to check to make sure it's dry. I didn't have enough of the hamburger that was ready for it, so I put a couple other blocks on. So we'll show them when they get bagged. Anyway, let's take them out and check them. And then open the drain valve. So tray 1, it's definitely cold right here. So I'm adding more dry time. So I added 7 more hours, and I'll come back and check it in the morning. Time to take them out, because I'm sure they're dry now. They were dry hours and hours ago. We'll bypass the rest of the time and get them out and check them. So that batch used 31.07 kilowatt hours. Okay, so we have all the hamburger, and then we've got some rice dish of some kind, and then some unknown stuff. Fold it in half. Yeehaw! And I'm not going to worry about if some of it breaks off. Yeah, it didn't crumble, so I'm going to just leave it in 2 big chunks. That's the nice thing about the flexible cutting mat. You can just kind of fold it a little bit. All right, so that's the first bag. It has approximately a half pound. It was 240 grams before. It's 153 grams now. So it has all the information to use it to get back to what it was. So all of these will be the same thing or a variation of that. The only difference will be these other ones, which will be labeled something different than ground beef. Other than that, that's it. When these are finished, these will go into a bag again instead of one of the bins, because these aren't staying here. Okay, so that's it until the next batch. And we're going to do, I think, a little experiment on the next batch showing the water loss from sugar, salt, uncooked rice, and dry beans. That's the current plan. So I'll see you in just a few minutes, or the next video for that one. Tray 3. Tray 1.